Hey friends, I'm Ash.
I'm Elle.
We are Lovey Cosplay.
This is Shit Cosplayers Say. It has been a while since we recorded.
Yes.
We went from being very far ahead to recording a week before this airs because holidays.
Happy holidays.
So normally we take our break over the holiday season, but because Spain kind of messed up our schedule for the season, we are still recording for season 3. So we got a little off track here, but now we're back.
Oops.
I started a ridiculous project in the meantime, so hey, it's all good.
Seems appropriate.
There are progress photos of Joanna on our Instagram, so please go look at her sparkly glory.
She's such a good girl.
I am going to take it one step further and get a professional photo shoot done in Joanna. So,
As you should.
As I should. I ran out of rhinestones, though, to finish her egg, so I had to order some.
No.
I was using leftovers from Harley, but apparently there are more, thousands more rhinestones that need to be on here than I thought. So, yeah, ordered some more of those. Gonna finish her egg, get her jewelry all put together, and hopefully shoot her at the end of February or early March. So
yeah, one of my coworkers is like, why? Why are you making this? I was like, to be fair, it's not me, it's my friend. But why not?
Why not? This was a why not. This was started as a joke with friends, and then I went, but what if I did do this?
But what if?
Because Joanna is best Disney princess.
Yeah. He specifically was very concerned about the number of rhinestones you were going to use. And I was like, it'll be fine. That's going to be so many rhinestones. I'm like, Harlequin has 10,000. So I'm sure she'll be fine doing an egg.
Yes, the egg's almost done. There's a 4x4 square that is missing rhinestones currently. So I'm waiting for more rhinestones. But yeah,
Travesty.
Harley has 10,000 easy. I think I stopped counting at 10,000. She's probably going to have more after I finish the little bits and pieces that I didn't do.
You're like, haha, achievement unlocked. Now I don't care.
Well, because now I want to put rhinestones on the heels of her boots and,
yes,
that kind of thing. And I'm sure I need to. Well, we can't count the rhinestones that are replacing rhinestones that fell off because that happens.
Yeah.
I'm sure she'll get a couple more at some point. We'll have to see who ends up with more rhinestones in the end, though. Is it Harley or Ivy? Because I think it's going to be really close.
Is this a contest?
It could be. I actually think Ivy will end up with more because of the flowers. Because if we rhinestone all her flowers after they get painted, I think she's actually going to end up with more rhinestones than Harley. So, I counted Harley by the bags. That's how I didn't count it individually.
Yep.
So, but I think Ivy has the potential to end up with more because she also has the stripes.
Yes.
So, but then she's got that butt curtain.
Yeah, she does have a butt curtain.
Likely will also have sparkles on it. So I feel like she could end up with more than Harley, or it's going to be really close to about the same.
I like it.
But I guess we'll find out eventually whenever we finish her. Her base wig is put together. Now I just have to get flowers so I can figure out how I'm going to do her flower crown dangly thing that she has going on.
So many flowers.
It's going to be an experiment. I don't know quite. I'm going to do it.
There's also flowers on the butt curtain.
Yes, there's flowers everywhere on her. So they all need to be done. Got to paint me some flowers. But you already have flowers, so I have to get the flowers so I can paint the flowers, so I can rhinestone the flowers, so I can add the flowers. But this is also the time of year where we literally don't see each other for 3 months. That's how this goes. So and it's not weather related usually. It's just this time of the year with all the holidays, November through end of February, we just flat out don't see each other.
It's weird.
It's what happens. We were really close, but your non-Monday holiday turned out to not be a holiday after all. So.
Yes, it turns out that I'm working my next 2 work holidays. So not the third one, but the next 2.
Yes. So your non-holiday holidays are not holidays.
Well, see, but I have the option where I can get paid for the holiday as just like a normal day, but then they also give me another day to take off later.
Oh, well, that's nice, though.
So I get to make it up. It turns into like a free day to use whenever I want to.
Oh, well, that's nice, though, then. Like, that's not so bad, then.
I am young enough in my company that I still do that, as opposed to like some of the people that have been there for a long time will just get it paid out. So they'll get their normal pay plus extra because they work the holiday. I would rather get my normal pay and then have an extra day to take whenever I feel like it.
I mean, that sounds like the better deal, really.
But I also don't work, like I don't have like a relief factor. I'm the only person in my department, so I can take off pretty much literally whenever I want.
I mean, that's true. As long as you have the time, you can use it. So,
a lot of people I work with don't have that privilege though, because their departments are so understaffed.
Right. That makes sense. So then it makes more sense for them to just get paid because they may not be able to use it anyway. Well, because that way you have more days to go to more cons.
All the days to do the things.
All the days to do things, because we're hoping we go to more than like 2 cons next year. We'll see what happens.
Dun, dun, dun.
We're in the figuring out where we're going to go stage. Which, speaking of, I'm going to say it again. We're not going to C2E2. I know people have been asking us a lot about C2, whether we're going to have the show, are we going to be there? We are not coming to C2E2 this year.
This year.
C2E2 has been about 7 months apart for the last 3 years, and it is a very expensive convention, so we've decided to look into going to other cons instead, just because that's a lot of the same con in a really short period of time. That doesn't mean we won't appear in Chicago. We're just not going to be at C2E2, so Chicagoans, stay tuned. We may have another convention for you instead. I did a little poll on Instagram, and Anime Central and Anime Magic were tied. Nobody wants us to come to Fan Expo, but that's also because they don't do 18 plus programming. So we can't do the regular live show. We would have to do the all ages show if we went to Fan Expo. So we will take this into consideration, but we won't be at C2. It's a little weird. We'll just join you guys next year. We won't have to have our post-con C2E2 depression.
Yeah.
I don't know. We were so busy at North that I don't even think I got to feel the post-con depression after North. So
that's because we went straight into like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
That's true. So we had other things to do, which helped stave off the post-con depression. So today we are talking about post-con depression.
Gasp.
Because have you ever returned from a convention? Have you suffered from exhaustion after walking more than you have in the past year? Are you missing your friends that you just hung out with for the past 3 days? Are you longingly looking at photos wishing for just one more shoot? And looking towards that next convention? Well, you might have PCD, post-con depression.
I gotta tell you, when you were going through that list, you're like, have you returned from a convention? I'm like, no, I live there. I never go home.
We never go home. Kind of feels like that sometimes.
Always at con.
That year that we did 13 felt like we never
15.
left.
15. We did 15.
Lord, no. Never again. 15's too many.
It was so many.
15's too many.
It was terrible. I think we did 13 either the year before or the year after, but luckily a lot of them were only single days that we did, but that's still a lot because we don't have cons physically in the cities where we live typically.
Yes, that is we have to usually drive at least 3 hours to do anything, which is why you don't necessarily see us guesting as much as we'd like to, because we have to travel and conventions don't like to pay for things, which we will talk about in the last episode of the season. A little experiment we're doing for this year. But post-con depression is a actual medical condition that affects people who attend an event. So we call it post-con depression, but there is like a wider concept of this where basically attending any kind of event that has like a big lead up and then there's all this big stuff that happens and then it's over can cause a lot of this response.
Some of you that have been with us for a while probably know what we're talking about.
Yes. So post-con depression usually caused by attendees when they've had more fun during the weekend than they usually have in their regular lives.
How dare they?
How dare they? This can also be caused by making friends that you only see at cons, causing that withdrawal and depression symptoms.
Thank God for social media.
Yep, I feel this because legit, I don't have friends where I live. Realized that the other day, like, my closest friend where I live is like 35, 40 minutes away. And then you would be the next closest, and you're over an hour. I do not have friends where I live. All my friends are not here. So, that's fun. Symptoms of post-con depression may include laziness, procrastination, withdrawal, whining, lack of interest, daydreaming, and soreness.
I like how a lot of those are also like all of your pre-con symptoms that you're going to be going through. It's like when you're taking like antihistamines and pain medications and all those fun like over-the-counter drugs whenever you're feeling ill, and the list of symptoms and the list of side effects contradict each other. Yep. And you're like, may cause runny noses. And I'm like, but it's a decongestant.
Well, then
I don't want to go the other extreme. I just want it to be fixed.
Well, then the remedy for post-con depression is to hang out with the friends that you met at the convention, plan for the next convention to come around, and work on cosplay. So basically, continue to do what you were already doing. But in all seriousness, like, this can be a legit issue for people. It can be a problem. You find the humor because it is, like, a legit thing. There's actually a post-con depression song by Mackelnot on YouTube. We'll put the link in, which is pretty hysterical, and it goes through, like, all the things you did at con and why you feel terrible and how you miss conventions, and it's cute. But it's obviously, I'm like, this entire song is a coping mechanism for dealing with what happens when you are not in this environment that makes you feel the most yourself, which I think is a lot of it too, is for a lot of people who attend conventions, they don't feel as connected to the day-to-day world as they do to the people at conventions. And so it's like 3 days where you get to be 100% yourself. And that is really hard to separate from. And I do think that for people who have some of that, this hits harder than others. It also tends to hit your older con population a little bit differently. That community one is probably the big one that hits people the most. Is like, you're in with your people for 3 days, and now you have to go back to the regular world that doesn't get you.
Yeah.
And, like, I get that one, because, like, legit, I'm like, I don't see my friends unless I'm at a con or we're somehow online together. Like, I don't really have friends where I live. I don't really live in a place that makes that easy. So, and I'm not home pretty much at all during the week because I'm at work.
Yeah. Well, and I even just looking at kind of what we've gone through the years, like, even now, like, I have a whole, like, wardrobe that I only wear at con.
Me too.
And you're not going to find me, like, taking selfies or, like, posing in front of the mirror, really kind of, like, doing that, like, once over on myself a whole lot, unless I'm in that environment and at con, just because I think I feel so much more confident. Like, I can wear a wig in the color of hair that I wish that I could have, but my job won't let me. I can wear clothes that are fun and, a little bit of spunk, because it's perfectly acceptable for me to wear those in those environments, but not necessarily in my day-to-day life, either because it's against the dress code or it's not practical. There's definitely a comfort level of being there. And then if you look at people, especially in marginalized communities or those that are neurodivergent, where they're going to see other people that are like them, or at least, allies, that they're not going to necessarily get everywhere else when they're just walking down the street.
The community that gets created by con is literally what season 4 is going to be about, friends. So we'll stay tuned for expanding on some of those things. But there are things that hit everyone, even if you don't feel that big loss of community when you leave con. The physical demands of a convention are going to be typically way higher than your regular life, because you are going to walk and stand more than you probably have in a year. And you're probably not wearing great shoes.
Well, and even when you're sitting, you're going to be sitting in like convention hall banquet chairs or folding chairs.
Right.
It's not like nice furniture.
No. Well, and if you're wearing cosplay, you're also wearing on your body, there's excessive heat, movement restrictions, discomfort. That's why we work really, really hard. Movement and being able to move in our costumes. Why we focus really heavily on that is because we want the costumes to be comfortable and wearable, but a lot of people's aren't, and so that's going to wear on your body as well. You're putting your body in positions it's not used to being in. You're putting extra strain on your muscles and your joints that you normally wouldn't with some of these costumes, particularly some of them that are more restricting, like armor, where you can't move naturally unless you've designed it that way. So that will really pull you down. People don't sleep at con. We do. We try to.
That's a learned behavior, though, over the years.
It's called I'm 38 years old and I need to sleep. But then when because we don't even, like, if cons schedule us at drunk o'clock, we won't even do it anymore. We'll be like, we're not doing the show. That's too late. I can't. I need to sleep. That's a necessity for sure.
We definitely don't do the whole, the whole evening into drunk o'clock anymore. I know we've done a couple shows that are later, but there's always a break. So we can go and, either just rest and recharge or take a nap or kind of get away from all the sensory overload for a little bit. So,
and eat.
That's important.
Because people also forget to eat when they're at con, because it can be very expensive, especially if it's not local, like you weren't able to drive to the con, you had to fly. Like, you can't bring food with you. That would be hard. Lack of proper food. You cannot live on rice and noodles. Now, I remember back when we were teenagers, we would survive on like Pop-Tarts and Mountain Dew, but I cannot do that anymore. I would literally die. I would die. It would not. No, can't do it. Blessed be the food suite of Colossal Con.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Praise be this food suite of Colossal Con. I will praise them forever. Best food suite ever.
5 stars.
5 stars. 5 stars. People also forget to drink water.
Yes, you cannot live on energy drinks alone.
No, which most cons are good about having water stations, so that helps a lot with the drinking water process. And it's not just like the pop that's in, the con suite, which most conventions don't have con suites anymore either since COVID.
Yeah.
But most of them that I've seen have had water jugs of some kind available. And if not, the convention center has water stations usually as well that are just built in. So that's, it's not as hard, but people do forget. Because again, if you're in cosplay, it's like hard to carry stuff around if you don't have a handler with you. So then you just leave that behind, and you should not. You should take it with you. It's okay if your water bottle doesn't match your cosplay.
That is true.
The massive change in just routine in general. You're waking up at a different time. You're going to sleep at a different time. You're in a different place. You're in a different environment. Your schedule is definitely not the same. You're eating at different times. It wreaks havoc on your body, especially if you're older. Our young congoers can handle this much better than us 30-plus congoers. We cannot handle this quite as well as our younger counterparts. I saw a TikTok where they made a charcuterie board for over 30 congoers, and it had like ibuprofen and Tums and like all those things on it instead.
That's amazing.
And it was pretty great. I think that was in the MagFest 31 plus group, which I'm in love with that Facebook group. I'm not gonna lie, it's absolutely hysterical. It had like ibuprofen and Tums and like all these things. Liquid IV, like all that kind of stuff on it.
Emergency. It seems appropriate.
Emergency, because we don't want to get con crud, but con crud is also what causes post-con depression. And the reason you get con crud is because with all these changes in your routine and your eating and your sleeping and your water intake, you make yourself more susceptible to illness.
Yeah, and that con crunching you did before the con.
Yes, makes you more susceptible to illness, so then you get con crud. Well, and then there's increased social demands. So you're constantly bombarded with social activity, and you don't have a lot of time to recharge. And I am someone that will like, my battery will run out and I need to leave. Going to a con and not having a room actually makes me really anxious because I can't leave. Like, I'm stuck. Like, it's not so bad if it's like a con during like a time of year where like you can go outside. But like a winter con and not having a hotel room would actually be kind of a nightmare for me, because I would not be able to escape the amount of like input in general, sensory as well, because that's also a problem, is the intense bombardment of sensory input that you're going to get at a convention. It's out of control. The auditory, the visual, the tactile. There's so many sounds. So
And
many people,
smells.
just convention centers in particular just overwhelm me like nobody's business. I use noise canceling earbuds in a lot of convention centers like C2E2. Japan Weekend is a similar thing where it's kind of like a warehouse and it's super echoey. Had to put them in because I cannot handle the amount. It's the amount of noise. It's not the volume. It's the amount and variety of noises at once that becomes really overwhelming. So it's not that it's loud, it's just there's too many different noises. And my brain can't filter them, and then I get really overwhelmed by the amount of sound. So noise canceling earbuds that are meant for concerts work great because you can still hear people near you that are talking to you, but you don't hear as much of the background noise. Which I know I've talked about them before. They should sponsor us because I've sent them to like 1 billion people at this point.
Yeah.
Not only just cosplayers, but clients. I'm like, these. I use Eargasm earbuds, and they're magical. They should sponsor us. Hear that? You guys should sponsor us. They're not listening to this, let's be honest.
Nope.
But yes, there are a lot of increased sensory demands because costumes also cause a lot of increased sensory demand as well for cosplayers. You've got wigs and different fabrics, and like I'm very careful about, like, I'm really particular about the fabrics I use because I know that certain ones are going to bother me. So like I'm really particular about my fabrics and my choices, and that's why almost all of my costumes have a cotton underlayer, because I don't like satin on my skin because it's gross and it makes you sweat and it's gross. That's all gonna amp up that sensory system too. But we also know that the letdown effect occurs. Ash knows all about the letdown effect. We have made you talk about this so many times at this point on this podcast, but I feel like we just have to keep reiterating this point.
Sure. Disclaimer, if you would like to hear more about the letdown effect, please go back to our Con Crud episode we did very, very early on. I believe it was
like
season 1.
It was season 1, and it was like right like in like April or May of the pandemic.
Yeah, it was really early in the pandemic. But the letdown effect, and this does not just happen from conventions. It does happen with other really big events in your life. So you get all of these chemicals going crazy through your brain. You got that adrenaline going, a little bit of your fight or flight response kind of kicking in just because you've got all of the stimuli or anticipation about the event and what's going to go on or what you're going to do there, who you're going to see. You're going and going and going and going and going and going, and then you stop. And so you stop because the convention's obviously over or you have to go home. You kind of just breathe and you take that really big sigh of relief and go, and then all those chemicals in your brain are like, I'm so confused as to what's going on right now. And then your immune system is completely out of whack, and then you get super sick because, again, you were not very good about washing your hands. Let's be honest. You were not very good about hydrating. You were not very good about eating good food. You were not very good about getting enough sleep. You probably were in very close proximity to an awful lot of people who were all doing those exact same things. So there's tons of illness running around anyway. I will report, though, I have not felt that con crud since the pandemic started, and we've had to wear masks at con. So anybody that says that masks don't work, I don't believe you.
Yeah, because I got sick at North, but we did not wear masks at North. But I don't know what that was. So that was like a 24-hour thing.
It is going to happen. It happens to everybody. I'm sorry to say that in that particular instance, you are not special. Everybody kind of goes through it. But so what can you do about it?
What can you do about it?
Well, first of all, admitting you have a problem is the first step.
What? Admitting that you need to make a change is the first step to making a change?
That's really weird.
What?
I know. Yeah. So instead of just running and smacking into a wall, then you're going to need to kind of take yourself out of it at a more gradual pace so that your body has time to adjust. You can even think this as kind of like a crash diet. So you don't want to go like from eating tons and tons of junk food into like a 72-hour fast because your body will be very angry. If you're wanting to cut calories, you need to do it gradually. You can't go from like 2,600 calories down to 1,000 calories in a single day because that's not healthy. It's not healthy anyway, but definitely not that quickly. So you need to ease yourself out of it. So maybe instead of going from 100 back down to 0, maybe you keep in contact with some of those people that you met at the con and still get some of that social interaction with your peer group, whether that be through social media, maybe you make coffee dates, maybe you talk on the phone. FaceTime is amazing. You have tons and tons of options to keep into contact with the people that you just spent time with. And you guys all have something to talk about because you just went to this event together. So you've got plenty of things that you can rehash conversations about. What's next for you? I mean, there's a whole giant calendar on the internet of, hey, these are all the cons that are going on. Or if you're a regular con goer in your area, you probably already have a decent idea as far as what's next. Maybe take a look at that one a little bit more and be like, hey, this is what I want to do for this con. I'm going to go to these panels. I'm going to host these panels. These are the costumes I want to wear. Who am I rooming with? Did I get my badge in my hotel room already? What kind of groups talk about this particular convention on social media? I wonder what kind of guests that they have. Like, there's plenty of options for you to kind of get your brain still in that con mode without being at that specific event or talking about that specific event. Another great thing about social media is that you have tons of options for kind of having places to look back on the event and what happened. So if there were particular guests that you liked that you met, check out their channels, check out their social media pages, and be like, what are these people saying about the event? Everybody pretty much has a Facebook group, at least one, for their convention, if not more. So see what other people are saying about the event. Check out any media coverage that might have been there. Are there tons of galleries going up of a bunch of the cosplayers or the panel programming? There's tons and tons and tons of ready stimuli available for you to digest over the internet when it comes to talking about cons in general. And just make sure you're taking care of yourself physically, because you do need to do that, because I know you weren't doing it at the show. So take care of yourself, get some rest. You can scroll all these web pages and social media apps from your phone and just be like, I'm going to sit here and relax and drink my water and eat my food. And then I'm going to take a nap. And then you can gradually decrease how much you do that each day. And then you're not going from running and then into a brick wall.
That is what ends up getting you in the end, is the drastic change. Like that you went from all of the stimulation to like nothing. And that kind of throws your brain out of whack a little bit. And then suddenly you feel pretty terrible. We've both had our variations of this over the years, obviously. You know, when we were teenagers, you had one con a year. Like that. That's what you had. You had one, you know. So you spent you literally came home and started planning for the next one. Like that's what you did. But, you know, as teenagers, you also had a more active social network. And, you know, for those of us who are not in like areas that have large social networks, you're not in school anymore, it can become a little bit more difficult. So for me, one of the things that I noticed that helps is for me to try to do social activities, which is easier said than done in my area because there's just not much to do here, frankly. That isn't going to cost me like a decent amount of money every time I want to do something. So because I don't really have a lot of friends, trying to get to some of those activities that I do have the opportunity to do is at least helpful, even if they're, few and far between. We have something coming up that we will talk about at the last episode of this season that I think is going to help with staying connected to the community. So stay tuned because we are going to have some new content for you coming in the near future. I don't know, I guess for me, because I also have, I'm 38, I also have a joint disability. A lot of mine is like mostly post-con exhaustion more than depression, where I feel it more physically than anything else, where my body is just done. Like, I don't know if I can go back to going to work Monday after a con. Luckily, I don't have to because I don't work on Mondays, but like, I don't know that I physically could do that anymore because it's becoming hard to like drive home on Sunday after a con now, let alone like function the next day. So for me, I think my post-con depression is a lot more post-con exhaustion. Can look a little different depending on, what kind of weekend I had and how much time we had to like have balance in that weekend. The hard part with con is you go to con and you get like a fire lit under your ass that makes you want to do all the things, and then only lasts for like a really short period of time, and then it's like boom, it's gone. Right? So trying to keep that going is also part of it. It's like you have the excitement, you want to do all of the things, but then that lasts for like a really short period of time. The new thing that we're going to do is hopefully going to also keep that going, so we have something to like that's scheduled to do. Because that's also the hard part about it that happens is you just don't do anything after con because now con is over. I would say that this probably hit the hardest after we finally finished ICL, but ICL was such a high string of all sorts of emotions that that was like just more than post-con depression. I mean, that was just a lot. Like, an entire era ended, what do I do? And we haven't really been able to pick the momentum back up, so we're going to be... I think that's one of the things that will help with this process a little bit, but I don't know if you've got any suggestions for our listeners.
Yeah, well, it's definitely changed for me over the years. I remember looking back and... yeah, when we were kids and we were going to this stuff, way back before Facebook was a thing or even MySpace or any of those, we spent a lot of time on the internet. So I would go to places like A Fan's View and search through cosplay galleries from that convention or other conventions. I would look up some of the other really popular cosplay places. When cosplay.com became a thing, I would scour the forums and just waste a lot of time on those particular internet sites. And it made me feel more connected to the community, even if I was just being an observer and not participating myself. I always have those great like fire under your ass plans that happen. Again, we usually write some of our best skits on the way home from con.
That's
it happens.
true.
I have all these great plans, and then I get home and I stop, and then the adrenaline just runs out and exhaustion sets in, kind of like what you were talking about. And I was just like, oh, I want to do all these things, but I can't. Now, though, I don't feel like I have that much downtime anymore like I used to. These days, more often than not, I'm moving immediately onto what feels like the next kind of big, important thing that I have to do. So between the changes that my family has experienced over the last, 5 years, for example, the needs of my day job, the passions that I actually have that I get to do with my job, that has some extracurricular activities involved with it, that I've kind of earned as my career has advanced. Mentally, there's always something that just feels like it's, oh my God, right now. There's always something pressing. And I'm sure the ADHD does not help with any of that. So usually when I get home, I'm immediately starting on whatever I was neglecting while I was con crunching. So whether that be like I really need to clean the bathroom or do the laundry or unload the dishwasher. Aside from getting clothes out of my suitcase, there's a lot of times where the rest of my suitcase, minus the dirty laundry, will just stay packed for like a month because my spoons are just not there to unpack it all and put it away.
Sometimes it's not worth unpacking depending on when we have another con.
Yes, that also sometimes happens. That's why I have so many toothbrushes open in my house right now, because I have my upstairs bathroom toothbrush, I have my downstairs bathroom toothbrush, and then I have another toothbrush that is actually my con toothbrush that goes in that particular bag.
Well, and that's part of why we're trying to get rid of crunching this year.
Yes.
Which we
It's a great plan.
But it's like a double-edged sword because we also don't have a due date. There's not a due date, but we should be making things.
Yes. So you have to, yeah, that's one of those struggles where you're like having to find other motivations besides the due date to get the thing done.
And we think we have, which we will share with you in the last episode.
Well, that's weird.
Well, that's weird. Yeah, we're going to make you guys wait for the last episode for our new idea. But hopefully it will help us do something. Because we legit have no competitions planned. We have nothing. Like, it's weird. We're not.
I kind of like it.
I kind of like it. I'm almost like, I don't know that I want to go back, which I know would disappoint so many of you. But I'm like, I'm not trying to get, if I want to stop doing a project to work on a different one right now, I can, because it doesn't have to be done for any particular thing. Like, if it doesn't happen, like, there's no major consequence.
Well, and that's not saying that we're not going to compete or we're not going to do any more high stakes competitions, but maybe because we're not setting due dates, we're just going to make the thing, and then when it's done, we'll go.
I mean, that's the way you're supposed to do it. We've just never actually done it that way.
Yes, that's always, we've talked about this for almost 10 years at this point.
Well, but doing it that way also basically requires you to take like an entire year off from competing.
Yeah.
Essentially, which we don't like to do, but we could also allow ourselves to compete with things that aren't meant specifically for a very specific competition at this very specific level that we've been working on for a year. And that's also something that's very foreign for us. It's just entering a contest to enter it and see what happens rather than like heavily planning for one specific contest. Like, what's that?
Just entering it to enter it and to have fun entering it, and not entering it because we think that this particular performance or particular costume or particular, way we crafted this is the, best way to win.
Right.
It's just more so like we want to do the contest, so we're going to show up. And we happen to have a costume that we can do that with, as opposed to like, okay, well, I really think that we need to do this particular skit because it's so great, and we're going to do these costumes because they've got the right level of different types of media involved, and we're really skilled in these, and we can learn this skill, and it'll be perfect by the time that we go. Oh, but we're also going to do this because mythical extra points, like, yeah. We don't necessarily need all that in order to participate in a contest. Like, that's not required. We just need to tell ourselves that and to calm down a little bit.
This is what happens when you start doing internationals, and then you think you have to do everything at that, like, extremely high level, and then you're like, but I don't have to.
Yeah. Current me is telling past me to chill out. It's fine. Like, calm down. You don't have to do that.
But it does
Not
make
required.
it hard to get things done. But maybe we'll resent costumes less this way.
Could be.
Because it won't be a, well, I really want to work on this, but I have to do this. For those
I'm curious
of you
to
that
see what happens.
Are suffering from post-con depression, listening to a podcast about cosplay and fandom and conventions that has over 70-something episodes could also be helpful for your mental well-being.
Totally help with your post-con depression. You should definitely go listen to the entire catalog.
You should definitely go back and listen to our entire catalog to help with your post-con depression.
If you would like to tell us about your post-con depression or ways that you personally have found that are great for staving off post-con depression, we'd love to hear about that. So throw it in the Instagram post or send us a DM.
And if you don't follow us on Instagram, please do. And also subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yes, do all those things.
Do all of those things. That would be great. Yeah, drop your experiences, your comments in the Instagram post. It's the best way to start the conversation and get a response. So,
you know what else really helps with my post-con depression? Hosting a podcast.
That's
talking
true.
about post-con depression.
Yes, the podcast did help us a lot through COVID when we had 0 cons.
Yeah.
It did help stave off that no con depression, basically.
No con depression. Yeah.
No con depression that we had in that process.
All right, friends. I'm Ash.
I'm Elle.
We are Lavi Cosplay.
And this is Shit Cosplayers Say. You've been listening to Shit Cosplayers Say, an LVC production. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Podcast SCS. Our website is lavicosplay.com. Have a fun, crazy con or cosplay-related story, absurd cosplay question, or just something in general to share with us? Email us at podcastscs@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and remember, just because you can doesn't mean you should.